Namaskar. This episode has your unanswered questions from episodes 50 and 51 of Ask Abhijit. 50 aired on the 7th of March and 51 on the 14th of March.
Smita Alva, how to build a good portfolio for humanities students at a graduation level. Basically for the humanities, it mostly depends on publication, right? So you need to be starting publication at your graduation itself. The best way to do that is to become an intern at some think tank or something like that, because they're very good at placing articles in newspapers, as well as, when it's published on the think tank itself, it's even better because it's considered peer reviewed, semi-peer reviewed almost. So do that. That's really important. That's the main thing. Next. Gaurav Kataria, Russia has accepted union pay. Why did we lose out to China, even though officials discussed about it? Do you think our officials were too incompetent to implement RuPay and UPI in Russia? No, I think there's still a lot of opportunity to implement RuPay and UPI in Russia. The thing is, remember, China has a lot more financial power than India. So the Chinese system is already, implemented in several banks across the world, which RuPay and UPI are significantly less. So obviously they'll choose one which has the maximum international exposure. Arun Gupta, with Ukrainians being pro-USA and Americans tilting towards socialist and left thinking, do you think there is a reversal of socio-political influence? I don't know if there's a reversal of socio-political influence, but look, America is basically destroying itself, right? The more they go to the left, they're essentially what Venezuela was 20 years back. They're slowly going to go irretrievably into Venezuela mode. And by that time, the institutional capture of the left will be so great that even if the smart enough people want to reverse course, there is going to be no course left to reverse. That's what's happening out there. Next. Malaban Bhattacharya, how did Japan become so powerful till World War II? Good question. So mostly just pure industrialization. All right. Pure industrialization. They went on building industry after industry after industry in Japan. They sought raw materials from abroad, which is why the expansionism started. Right? Because remember, in those days, when you wanted raw materials to fuel your industry, you went and conquered the country. You didn't set up trade deals like we do today. Today, the whole reason the world moved, remember, we didn't decolonize ourselves. Decoloniality happened all by itself because it was just cheaper to buy goods of a country than it was to rule that country and spend excess amounts on, maintaining law and order and all of that. So that's purely how Japan became powerful. Industrialization, industrialization, industrialization. It's probably the only worthwhile line in Nehru's history of the world book, which is that, he says that while India sent boys abroad to study law, the Japanese sent boys abroad to study science. And that's how they did it. Next. Varun Bhaskar, I work in the construction and trades in the US. What are the trade schools in India like? Are they apprenticeships, on-site learning, or abstract? Okay, so this is actually quite problematic in India, right? Because nobody actually recognizes a trade as being valuable. They will not appreciate a great piece of carpentry. They will not appreciate a truly great AC mechanic or a truly great car repair person and things like that. So it's very, very problematic in India. So apprenticeships here are frequently on site, but very seldom abstract, because what you're doing is it's meant for a low disposable income, low earning demographic, and it's just very low caliber irrespective of what it is. There's a informal apprenticeship system, some semi-formalized. I mean, I've seen some formally accepted apprentices and things like that, but there is on-site learning. It's on the job learning, realistically speaking. There is no clear syllabus, though with this government they have introduced a syllabus. I've not seen anybody actually who's ever come who carries the cards, and has been through that program, even though they're saying it's a great success. I'm yet to meet someone come out of that program. Next. 𝗣𝗚𝗂𝗃, my Russian friends are devastated. What do you think about the future of the Russian economy? Russian HDI and per capita will go down to the level of India or North Korea? Yes, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Russia is devastated. It's almost as if they've exploded a nuclear bomb on Russia, right? It'll take decades, if not more, for Russia to recover if and when the sanctions are lifted. Russian HDI, Russia has already overnight become the poorest country in Europe, literally within the space of 10 days. And yeah, it's going to lead to a lot of social churn. There's nothing we can do now. This is something Putin should have calculated about. His fault. He picks up the tab. Unfortunately, the Russian people pick up the tab. Next. 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗀𝘀𝗀, looks like war and votes can be won virtually in democratic way through economic control. One-sided blackout of media and digital platforms, which is also a marketing tool. How can we break this? Well, 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀, we can only break this through concerted government action, which our government doesn't seem too keen to take. Surprisingly, it was Sonia Gandhi who spoke about it yesterday. I suspect mostly to deflect from her own family's failure, especially her son and her daughter's failure. She wants to blame it on these, but otherwise, no. There is nothing we can do outside of state action. Next. Dr. Sharma, North Kerala, Central Kerala, South Kerala, or Mamallapuram best place to visit in the third week of March? I think where you need to be going is, it depends on what your plan is. Personally, I'd always say Trivandrum and Padmanabhapuram Palace, as well as that beach resort near Trivandrum. I've forgotten what it's called. Lovely beach resort. So that's if you want 3 in 1. Otherwise, do Cochin. Cochin's also really nice. You'll get some decent beach. You'll get the backwaters near Cochin. And if you stay at the Taj, the nice one facing this thing, you can also go see some historical stuff on the boat across to Fort Cochin. Shrey Saxena, what's the future of Pak and Sri Lanka in terms of economy? Are they looking forward to complete economic collapse? No, they're not. They're actually probably much better off than Russia at the moment. Pakistan will totter along. Remember, Pakistan, unlike Russia, which was a formalized economy, Pakistan's always been an informal economy. So even if there's a formal collapse, the informal economy just goes on. Sri Lanka is slightly more problematic. I think the thing is, the way it's being looked at in China is, if we allow Sri Lanka to collapse, then everybody will see what we've done to Sri Lanka and they'll move towards America to rescue them. We can't allow that. So at least for now, let's keep Sri Lanka on the drip. That's what they're doing. So I don't think Sri Lanka would really be allowed to collapse, because when you say economic collapse, remember, collapses are very complicated. Even when you collapse, you don't really collapse. Like the Argentine collapse, remember, under Christina Kirchner, what happened then? They've kind of recovered from there. I mean, very significantly recovered from there, right? So, collapse is no longer what it used to be once upon a time. It's not like, the Weimar Republic collapsing. Okay, Revanth Reddy, Karnataka is bringing law to free temples. Are the Hindutva narrative shifting from being north-centric to south-centric? That's inevitable, no? It's inevitable. As the BJP wants to start moving south, it is going to be south-centric. But remember, the core of Hindutva has always been extremely Maharashtra, UP based. So it's only natural that it's going to move to the south, but I don't think it's moved south yet. The temples is what the Karnataka government did. It's not what is being spoken about today. Okay, the speaking about is still Kashi, Mathura, Ayodhya. So the narratives are not shifting south yet, no. Zeolite, Dad does defense manufacturing for DRDO, HAL and Kanpur. We developed ACL backlight for Tejas, imported from Italy. Indigenization cell is a joke. What to do? Yes, it is a joke, because remember, it's not just a joke, it's also heavy corruption that happens out there. Okay, so this is what I keep saying. They never do audits. Even now, when you go, when was the last time you saw an industrial survey of India as to who is manufacturing what? So, DRDO guys, they just lie and say, "Arey, ye sir, mil raha nahi hai idhar," and they buy it from wherever they want. What you're going to do? It's blatant corruption. What I'd suggest you do is write to your minister and write to your newspaper and things like that about how you were making it, and then get ready for a slander campaign. Also, they'll say your lights were substandard and things like that. So be ready with a video to counter that, and show that it was not substandard, and write to the defense minister, write to the prime minister, and write to newspapers about it. Do it. These are things that have to be exposed. Next. What's your view on new age Tamil actors like Vijay, Ajit, Dhanush, Vijay Sethupathi? Can they also become politicians like MGR? No, I don't think any of them is capable of becoming a politician. I mean, look, if Rajni can't become like MGR, if Kamala Hassan can't become like MGR, these guys no chance, boss. I think that era of movie to film transplanting is over, not happening again. And I don't like any of those actors anyway. Next. Ashutosh Srivastava, just curious. When Galwan happened, USA was vocal about China but not Russia. So why do we have the perception that USA is an enemy opposed to Russia? Realistically, I think it has a lot to do with Russia not asking us to do things in public, whereas America does. Do you see a Russian discourse which targets India? No. But you see an American discourse that targets a non-government discourse that targets India. Yes, you see it in the Washington Post and New York Times every single day almost. You see it on CNN almost every single day. You see it on MSNBC every single day. You see it on Trevor Noah and who's that glasses wala? Jamie Oliver? No, that's the chef. Trevor Oliver? No. You know what I'm talking about, the retard with the glasses. Whose show wasn't funny after the first season. None of them are funny. But yeah, so when you're bombarded with constant negativity, you begin to see America as being the less desirable of the two. Next. Gaurav Kataria. How is the India-Bangladesh relationship? I find there's some hostility towards GOI amongst my Bangladeshi Muslim friends. Is it not safe for Hindus? Many Hindus I met said it's not. It is not. Mostly because there is no government control over, there's no government monopoly on violence. The relationship is doing really, really well. Why you find the hostility there is because I personally think India made a huge mistake getting rid of Khalida Zia and her party. Now all our eggs are in just one basket, the Awami League's basket, which is Sheikh Hasina's basket. The problem then is, see, when you have a pressure cooker, you should always have a gasket and a weight for pressure release. Right now, in a one-party state, there is no pressure release valve. And that is the problem out here, which is why instead of it turning internally, it turns towards India. I think it was a very stupid move for India to have done, but it is what it is. But the relationship is excellent. Next. Akshay K. Has coronavirus been spread by Russia, China? Russia kahan se aaya? China, yes, of course, 100% has been spread by China. Next. What do you think is the end result of India-Pakistan conflict? Will it be a nuclear war eventually? No. I think both India and Pakistan are very sane in the way they deal with these things. They'll go out of their way to avoid. No side will win a crushing victory, and therefore no side will use nuclear weapons either. There's a kind of a tactile understanding of these things, which a lot of people find very difficult to understand, but that's the way it is. But no, I don't think it'll end up in a nuclear war, mostly because it won't last for more than about 10-12 days maximum, and there won't be any significant gain of territory. Next. Sharan Vinnakota. Hi, Aim. Why did 𝗘𝗽𝗀𝗀𝘀𝗀 not take up the job at Tata due to international pressure? He was told very clearly. Ratan and Chandrasekharan went to meet him in Dubai, and they told him, boss, your history is highly problematic. We can't take you. And so he put out a statement saying there have been my reputation has been besmirched publicly, and I don't want to be associated with something like this. But the Tatas basically told him to take a hike. That's what happened. And they gave him, a way out so that he could claim that he was the one dropping his nomination. Next. Bharat Vats. Hi, Abhijit. What's your take about India-China border situation? So far, 15 rounds of talks. That's perfectly fine, Bharat. Bharti. It's perfectly fine because the more talks that happen, the more time we get to build infrastructure. Now the infrastructure building has moved to Arunachal as well. I was really scared that we were building in Ladakh, but not Arunachal. Now it's moved east. It's a very good thing. So that longer talks continue, the more time we get to build realities on the ground, as they're called, facts on the ground, as they're called. And that's an excellent thing. So very, very good so far. Aim, briefly, can you explain the root cause of the Chechen war, the course of events and the end result? Who won the war in the end? Look, there's never a root cause. Okay, nothing ever has a root cause. It's a whole set of history. And in this case, the history has always been that because Chechnya was always on the periphery of the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire had a direct connect with, they controlled Saudi Arabia and the holy places. And Chechnya, of course, was also in the invasion routes of Iran. They used to be this, they still are extremely radicalized and extremely fundamentalist, right? This happens in border territories where you're subjected to, like Shia invasions and things like that. And when you keep changing hands, it tends to become extremely fundamentalist. And Soviet control meant, now remember, Soviet control in Central Asia is very different from Soviet control in Chechnya. Chechnya had lots of international borders very close to it. Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, all these places, they're mostly desert. If you're running away from Soviet oppression, where you're going to go? Nowhere. From one Soviet city to another Soviet city, or you'll die in the desert. Not the case here. So they could always go. That cross-border pollination went on happening out there, which is why the radicalization completely stayed alive. And it's always, for the last 150, 200 years, right from Tsarist times, it was a hotbed of religious, of Wahhabism specifically, because the original Chechen revolt was very much influenced by Abdul Wahab, because they actually believed in that Arab primacy of interpretation. And so that took root out there. And of course, there's the other conditions like its proximity to other places and things like that, which is why it was always a sore thumb for 200 years, but ultimately it seems Russia has won. It took close to 100,000 Russian dead, but Russia has won, because today Chechnya is completely under Russian control. What Russia says happens out there, probably more so than in any other part of Russia. And they found the easy way out, which is to find a Wahhabi fundamentalist like Ramzan Kadyrov, put him in charge, where he implements Wahhabism like nobody's business. Much more so than Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has liberalized very significantly, but not Chechnya. So yeah, that's that. Chai, should India stop privileges given to Nepali citizens like visa-free work? Nepal hates us anyway. Why should we employ their people when we can have significant unemployment in our country? No, you should not. Because remember, every time Nepal tries to wean away from us, there is usually some kind of a shift that happens that bring them back towards us. And that mostly happens because of Nepali citizens being completely dependent on India in several ways. You can't just push away countries because they have a short-time hostile attitude towards you, because then you end up pulling the rug from under your friends. Remember, we answered a question with regards to Bangladesh, on how a lot of them tend to be anti-India. That's perfectly fine. This was the Mexican president Benito Juarez used to say, Mexico's great tragedy is that it is so far from God and so close to America. All small countries close to a big country, there will be a significant population that hates that big country. That doesn't mean you can just lock it out, kick it out, and things like that. Because in the final analysis, when things happen, they will ultimately be on your side. So don't worry about it. Don't go by the occasional protest and things like that. Always take a macro view. Don't get into the micro here. Next. Levi Ackerman. Why we Hindus don't make fun of God where Hindu scriptures don't have blasphemy laws? But Christians make fun of Jesus in spite of being Abrahamic, and Jews can make Holocaust but can't think about it. Okay. Well, look, Hindus do make fun of God. I went to jail for making fun of God, remember? So there is a lot. I don't think it's public because everybody's scared of going to jail for it. You never know who does what. But we do make a lot of fun of God. There's, in fact, much more so than Christians. I think the thing with, you see a lot more Christians making fun of God because the legal protections there afford you to make fun of God. In India, because the legal protections are very iffy, you can't take the same liberties that the West can. But it doesn't have to do with Hindu Christian. It has more to do with Indian jurisprudence versus developed country, Christian developed country jurisprudence. Next. Abhijit Sudhakar, your opinion on Che Guevara, murderous psycho thug. Why are his t-shirts famous? Because people don't know he was a sadistic, dirty, torturing murderer. People wear it without knowing him. Is he overrated or underrated? He's completely overrated. He achieved nothing in his life. He was a perpetual loser. And I guess that is why people like him. Because he's an aimless loser who roams around becoming very famous. And everybody wants to do that. They don't want to do any work and they want to become famous and get all the girls just roaming around being useless. There's a great attraction to becoming rich doing nothing, or become famous doing nothing. That's what everybody wants. So Che Guevara is, if you see somebody wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt, you know that they're basically third raters who want to become famous doing nothing. Next. Omkar Kulkarni, MBS shows mid-finger to Joe. How will oil prices affect us in the future? Well, oil prices are coming down. What does multipolar world actually mean? Chaos. Will it affect currency and will it achol the US? Yeah. So what's going to happen is basically MBS is in no mood to forgive Joe Biden. Even with oil prices, right now it's coming down based on speculation. It's not coming down based on actual production increases. So let's see what happens. I suspect MBS will realistically start screwing them over on oil prices after this war gets over in about 1 or 2 months, right? And what a multipolar world means is a world where there are too many NGOs, where America exercises control through these civil society organizations and so-called subnational diplomacy. And will it affect currency? Look, it's going to affect currency in a very different way. What you're going to see is almost every country in the world is now going to diversify its sources from. I think there has been no greater input towards diversification away from the dollar and the euro than this Ukraine war and what's happened. You will genuinely now be looking at the yuan become a reserve currency of the world. It's not something we wanted, but unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Next. Setu Srivastava, sorry, sir, sorry to ask this question, but will we ever have MMRCA 2? Yeah, in about 40 years. Why can't we make 400 pages and 200 AMCA? Yeah, that's what I've always been saying. Make, even if the quality is bad, just go ahead producing it. By the second or third batch, you will get it right. Okay, which is why you need to make not 80, you need to make 400 or 500 pages. And you need about at least 300-400 AMCA. Because remember, you need about 100-120 to go wrong before you get it. Well, not go wrong, be kind of substandard before you get it right. And then you can come and fix those. Once you hit the right formula, you can come and fix those. But they won't do that, you see, because they don't take a holistic view of these things. They're like, what if we buy this Tejas? It's such a bad fighter, and then we have to go fight a war. How do we fight with this? It's problematic. That's why they don't do it. So, but in an ideal world, they should. Next. Venu, is Kerala heading the Kashmir way? Yes, it is. My close Muslim friend has confided to me that they are being taught anti-India stuff in the madrasa. Anything we can do? There's absolutely nothing you can do. Because communists or Congress, they're not going to let down the Muslim electorate out there. There is severe radicalization happening out there. The only hope is that because UAE and Saudi Arabia are liberalizing, that knockdown effect, because most of them work in Saudi Arabia or the UAE, that knockdown effect, and Oman has anyway been quite liberal for a while. We're hoping the knockdown effect works. That is the one silver lining, but maybe not. But yes, I personally feel Kerala is heading the Kashmir way. Abhijit Sudhakar, one suggestion. Would you write books based on Turkic invasion podcast that you did in 𝗘𝗶𝘀𝗀? I think it's better we have such a reference and research-based military books for future studies. Yes, I think I should. I think I will. Thank you for the suggestion. But yes, I think I will, if I manage to find the time. Next. Amay Tandon. Putin invaded Georgia after the Bucharest summit in 2008. Why no outcry then? Can he do this same with Ukraine as he did with Georgia? There was a huge outcry then. Amay, I don't know what TV channels you were watching, but there was a huge outcry. There were sanctions imposed. I think the issue there was they couldn't really impose too many sanctions at that point of time, because even the EU's own internal investigation report showed that Georgia had initiated the hostilities. Russia had provoked, but Georgia had initiated. And when you are the first to attack, you can't then cry victim after that. There was that. Next. 𝗘𝗽𝗂𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 or 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗀𝘀. Which religion will survive in the future, Islam or Christianity? Both. Do you think India will have another partition when Muslims become 25-30%? Yes, undeniably. Why 25-30%? 20% par hi ho jayega, boss. Or we're going to have a fantastic, amazing insurgency, the likes of which the world has never seen. It'll make the Lebanese civil war look tame. We will. Best 3-4 books related to any field that Abhi has read. I keep recommending it's the same books over and over again, boss. So I'm not going to repeat that again. Next. Sudhanshu Naik, is Twitter and IMDb suppressing voices? Of course they do. Of course they do. Twitter, Jack Dorsey openly admitted to it. And why would you think IMDb would not have a liberal bias? So of course they will. Next. Ibitha Ka Raja, Aim, can you suggest some ways to neutralize extremist Islamic ways in India, given policy framework suggestions? Well, one thing is education. First, you need to do away with all these private education being superior to public education. Unless you invest in education and make your public education world class, you will always be putting ammunition into the hands of regressive schmucks. Number one. Number two, you have to spread that education into rural areas everywhere. The tablets were one way to do it. The Akash tablet, we never did it. For some strange reason, we never did it. Number three, what you need to do is you need to regulate what religious schools teach. France is now doing this. The Saudis and Emiratis have always done this. What I'd suggest you do is get a fatwa from Mecca saying all religious institutions should submit to audit by the government, and then you start doing it. Now, MBS is your friend. He'll have the fatwa passed also. Use that and start controlling what is done. You have to do it with Christian institutions as well, because you don't know the kind of venom they spread out there. Next. Suresh Vallayaputtur. After Nalin's book and BJP's win in UP, do you have a different take on BJP picking Yogi to cut Rajnath Thakur's dominance? No. He was chosen exactly for that thing. They will always control the Thakur vote. They just didn't want it to be Rajnath. They wanted to have an alternate to Rajnath because Rajnath was effectively the second most powerful leader, probably more powerful than Gadkari. Gadkari could bring in the money in Maharashtra. Rajnath could bring in a significant chunk. So, no, they still need Yogi to keep cutting Rajnath, because if Yogi goes, then Rajnath becomes the default leader. Next. Suresh Vallayaputtur, why are we still buying different kinds of tanks? Can't the same more effective outcomes be achieved through drones? Yes. And what about the 114 fighters to replace the MiGs? Look, I oppose the 114 fighters because, again, you're wasting your time and effort and money on yet another kind of aircraft. Either buy more Rafales or order the production of more Tejas. I oppose this 114 fighter deal because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's just a complete waste of resources, right? I mean, we've always known, why did the Israelis develop drones? It was precisely to use it the way that Turkey is Turkish drones are being used in Ukraine and Azerbaijan. They never ended up using it in there because by the time Israel started developing those drones, their conventional superiority had been so great that nobody thought of a conventional war, so they invented other ways of using drones. But this is exactly, taking out armor is exactly what drones were used for. And if you look at Pakistan, the amount of shoulder-fired weapons that they've stocked up is meant to take down our tank advantage. So I don't know why we still have not moved towards drones. We keep telling the government that the government does nothing. The army loves its tanks because, you can make a lot of money on tanks corruption-wise, and it looks good in a parade. The Savars, the tank men feel superior to the Javans who are infantrymen because, hey, we're mechanical and things like that. That's what happens. So, there's a lot of, this is why the higher political management in the country can't shove things down the military's throat, which is very problematic.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This is on channel 2, so this is a new channel, and we really would appreciate it if you can click on the like button when you start listening to it, and also click subscribe and the bell button for getting notifications. Namaskar.